The cosmic spill never slept. Perpetual haze clung to the rafters, the mingled exhalations of every species' preferred smoke drifting through the low-lit tavern like a second atmosphere. Tables sticky with unidentifiable spills were surrounded by smugglers fresh from half-honest runs, mercenaries looking for their next contract, and those who simply wanted to disappear. The establishment sat on the outer rim of the Arcturus system, far enough from civilized space to ignore the laws of either empire, but close enough to catch their runoff. It was a place where reputations were born, destroyed, and bartered away over a bottle of fire whiskey. Ryle Morgan slid a cloth across the counter with practiced ease, movements precise and almost ritualistic. His fitted white shirt and black trousers were clean, immaculate even, in defiance of the chaos that pressed against him from every side. The faint green of his eyes caught the reflection of the tavern's neon glow, cold and controlled. He did not smile, nor did he scowl. His expression was a mask of indifference, polished by 3 years behind the bar. Once, long ago, his hands had steadied rifles and directed squads. Now they steadied glasses. Another round for table 6. Drav, the tavern's 4-armed Paxian owner, rumbled from behind a mountain of stacked kegs. And for Star's sake, Morgan, you could try looking less like you're here to murder the customers. Smile once in a while. Ryle didn't answer. He loaded a tray with fizzing blue cocktails, weaving through the crowded floor without a stumble. Most of the regulars barely gave him a glance anymore. The newcomers did humans this far out were still rare enough to spark curiosity. Some eyes lingered with suspicion, some with intrigue, and a few with quiet fear they couldn't place. Ryle ignored them all. The doors burst open with enough force to rattle bottles on the shelves. Conversations faltered. Into the smoky light strode an Ovalian woman, her blue skin shimmering faintly, as though she carried a fragment of starlight beneath her flesh. Her silver hair was cropped short, and her leather-like outfit clung to her form in ways designed to draw attention. She didn't walk so much as swagger, every step a challenge. "Well, look what the cosmic cat dragged in," Drav muttered, shoulders sagging. Taria Ven, a name stirred murmurs. Everyone had a version of her story: smuggler, bounty hunter, thief, killer, or all of the above. The only constant was chaos. "Barkeep," she sang, her accent carrying a mocking melody. "You're strongest. Reel in fire whiskey, and don't water it down like last time." Drav shoved Ryle forward with 2 of his 4 hands. "You take this one. She likes pretty faces. Maybe she won't break anything tonight." Ryle placed the glass in front of her, pouring with steady precision. "Reel in fire whiskey," he said flatly. Taria's eyes widened slightly as she took in his features. Well, a human. Not every day one of your kind strays this far. What's your name, waiter?" "Ryle." He turned to leave, but her hand shot out, fingers closing around his wrist with surprising strength. "Not done with you yet," she purred, tugging him closer. Her breath was laced with alcohol and spice, her smile wicked. "What brings you?" "All the way out here." Running from someone? Something?" "I serve drinks." His tone was cool, final. She laughed, the sound bright enough to cut through the smoke. No, I've seen enough soldiers to know one when I see one. You've got that look." He pulled his wrist free, but her balance wavered as she stood, the bottle in her other hand nearly tipping. "Don't walk away from me, human." Her fingers shot forward, unsteady with drink, aiming for his shoulder. Instead, they hooked the front of his shirt. The fabric tore with a sharp rip. Buttons scattered across the floor like shot casings. Gasps echoed through the room. Beneath the ruined white cotton, Ryle's chest was bare save for a single tattoo etched deep in black and crimson, a dragon coiled around a red star, 5 distinctive marks trailing beneath it like tally lines. It was not decoration. It was declaration. Every being in the tavern knew it instantly. The mark of the Draxer Phantoms. Elite soldiers feared across 3 quadrants. Peacekeepers turned executioners. Ghosts that walked battlefields where no survivors remained. Taria's smirk vanished, her blue skin paling. Her eyes widened, shock, cutting through the haze of liquor. "Holy stars," she whispered, her voice carrying to every corner. "You're one of them." Silence gripped the room like gravity, every gaze burning into Rael's exposed chest. His hand moved instinctively to cover the emblem, but it was far too late. His mask of anonymity had been torn away with his shirt, and the fragile routine he had built for 3 years crumbled in an instant. The cosmic, Spill Tavern was no longer a hiding place. It was a cage. The silence that followed Taria's outburst had weight thick as the smoke that drifted between the rafters. For one fragile heartbeat, the entire tavern seemed to hold its breath. Then the first voice broke through a hiss from a shadowed corner where a hulking Krellian rose to his feet, his scaled skin catching the glow of the emergency lamps. "Draxer scum," he snarled, teeth flashing. "Do you know what your kind did to my colony?" The scrape of chairs against the floor followed. Blasters hummed to life, the air filling with the deadly whine of charged cells. Others reached for blades, bottles, anything sharp enough to spill blood. Rage, fear, and old. Scars stirred in every face turned toward Rael. Taria blinked, suddenly aware she had lit the match. Her drunken haze thinned, leaving only adrenaline and the echo of her own reckless hand tubbing cloth. She hadn't meant to tear the shirt, hadn't meant to expose him. And yet the tattoo blazed across his chest like a beacon, drawing every grudge in the room.r. IYLE didn't move. He stood rooted in place, his muscles taut beneath the ruined fabric, green eyes scanning the room with cold efficiency. He measured exits, distances, the angle of every drawn weapon. Instinct had woken. In him, the kind that never truly slept. "Enjoy your drink," he told Taria, voice flat as though nothing had changed. He turned to leave, but she lurched after him, desperate to salvage the storm she had unleashed. Wait! The first blaster bolt screamed across the tavern. Rael dropped low, the beam searing past his ear, close enough to blister skin. He moved without thought, without hesitation. One motion sent a table toppling over, forming instant cover as shards of glass exploded overhead. The room detonated into chaos. Patrons screamed, some ducking, others eager for blood. "Down!" Taria shouted, though her warning was already drowned out by the roar of violence. Rael rolled across the floor, his movements sharp, precise, an echo of the soldier he had once been. He had no weapon, no squad, but his hands were deadly tools of muscle memory. A chair came flying. He ducked beneath it. A bottle shattered against the wall above him. He grabbed another bottle from the bar and hurled it at the overhead light. Fixture. Glass and liquid rained down, sparks igniting. The tavern dimmed to semi-darkness, lit only by the pale glow of Arcturus's twin moons through the viewport and the jittering emergency lamps. "Phantom," someone roared. "Hill, call his masters down on us all." The crowd surged. A Taurian mercenary charged, 4 massive arms outstretched. Rael intercepted the rush, twisting with impossible speed. His strikes landed in a blur nerve points, joints, tendon. The alien collapsed in a heap, limbs spasming but alive. Gasps filled the shadows. This wasn't the ruthless executioner from propaganda reels. This was something else measured, controlled, terrifying in its restraint. Taria stumbled to his side, drawing her blaster, but Rael's hand closed over hers. Steady and unshakable. "Don't," he said, voice low and even. "You'll just escalate it." Her jaw clenched. "It's already escalated." Another figure lunged, a pale alien brandishing a vibroblade, spittle flying from his lips. The phantom slaughtered. My family on Vega Prime. Ryle caught his wrist mid-swing, twisting until the blade clattered to the floor. I was never on Vega Prime, he said quietly. He shoved the attacker aside without a killing blow. But the words meant nothing. The crowd wasn't listening. Drav's forearms flailed, the Paxian shouting for order, but his voice was lost. In the uproar, centuries of hate had condensed into this one night, and all of it burned against the man with the dragon on his chest. Ryle pressed forward, moving toward the back corridor, every step fending off another assailant. Taria kept close, eyes wide, heart hammering, torn between fear and awe. She had never seen anyone move like him, precise as a blade, deadly without cruelty. By the time they reached the emergency door, Ryle slammed the lock behind them, cutting off the chaos of the tavern. Their breaths echoed in the narrow service corridor, sweat and smoke clinging to them both. "You're not what I expected," Taria admitted, voice raw as they ran. "And what did you expect?" His torn shirt flapped. With every stride, the tattoo flashing in the pale moonlight that bled through a ceiling grate. "A monster," she said simply. "The phantoms, everyone knows what they did, what you did." His eyes hardened, shadows darkening his face. "I know what happened on Proxima," he cut in, tone like steel. "I was there." The words carried weight, an unspoken wound that made her chest tighten. Behind them, the sound of sirens rose, the authorities already alerted. Somewhere above, patrol craft engines screamed through the night. Ryle glanced toward the docking bays. "We need to get off-world, now." Taria hesitated, her mind racing. The man beside her was supposed to be a nightmare, a weapon wearing human skin. But she had seen the way he fought, seen what he chose not to do. "I have a ship," she said finally, her voice steady despite. The storm in her chest. Docking Bay 17. Small but fast. Ryle studied her face for a long, loaded second. "Why would you help me?" She swallowed, her gaze flicking down once more to the mark he tried and failed to conceal. "Because I saw what you were in there, and you're not what they say you are." The sound of approaching boots and shouting voices forced his decision. He nodded once, sharp and final. "Lead the way." Together, they vanished into the night, hunted by a galaxy that had just been reminded one of its deadliest ghosts still walked among them. The night whisper rose from the docking bay like a shadow uncoiling, its sleek matte hull catching only fragments of the twin moon's light before vanishing into the stars. Inside, the hum of engines filled the silence between two fugitives who had no reason to trust one another, save for the firestorm they'd just survived together. Taria Venz. Hands danced across the controls, surprisingly steady for someone who had been 3 shots deep an hour ago. Sobriety clung to her now, as sharp and unforgiving as the trajectory she plotted through the asteroid belts ringing Arcturus. Her silver hair glimmered in the dim cockpit light, but her expression was unreadable. Ryle Morgan sat in the co-pilot's seat, the torn remnants of his shirt hanging open across his chest. The dragon and star tattoo burned between them like a third presence in the cabin. He hadn't bothered to cover it, as though hiding it now was pointless. His green eyes tracked the stars streaking into elongated lines as the ship jumped to hyperspace. His jaw was tight, his body still coiled as though expecting another blaster bolt to come searing through the bulkhead. For a time, neither spoke. The ship's systems hummed, consoles blinked, and hyperspace wrapped them in its blue tunnel. At last, Taria leaned back in her chair and exhaled, a sound halfway between a sigh and a laugh. 3 years I've walked into dens of killers, and never once did I nearly get vaporized because of a shirt, she said, her tone laced with amusement that didn't quite mask her curiosity. Ryle's gaze stayed fixed on the viewport. You shouldn't have touched me. You shouldn't be wearing the mark of a phantom in a place like the spill, she countered. You wanted anonymity, and you branded yourself with the most infamous symbol in 3 quadrants? It's not something you choose, Ryle said, voice low. Once you earn it, it's yours until death. They burned it into us. You can cover it, but it never stops being there. Her eyes flicked to his chest again. So it's true then. You really were one of them. Ryle didn't answer. Instead, he leaned back, muscles relaxing by inches, as though deciding whether to peel away the silence he'd worn like armor for years. Finally, his voice came, steady and unflinching. The phantoms didn't begin as monsters. We were peacekeepers. Elite soldiers trained to stop wars before they began. We ended conflicts no one else could touch, surgical, precise, efficient. That's why I joined, because I believed in that mission. His gaze darkened, reflecting the hyperspace glow. Then came Proxima 4. Taria shifted in her seat, recognizing the name immediately. Every spacer had heard it whispered the colony that burned, the thousands dead, the official story buried under propaganda. What happened? She asked quietly. Ryle's hand clenched around the armrest. We were told it was a terrorist stronghold. Orders were clear. Neutralize resistance, secure the colony. But when we landed, it wasn't soldiers waiting. It was civilians, families, children, and the orders didn't change. His voice cracked, just barely. I tried to stop it. I was just one man, one phantom against the rest. By the time I broke ranks, it was too late. The blood was already on our hands. Silence settled over the cockpit, heavy and raw. Taria's throat tightened. For years she had cursed the phantoms as demons in human form, tools of Draxer cruelty. Yet the man beside her carried no hint of glory, only scars that hadn't healed. Deserted, she said. I disappeared, he corrected. Let the galaxy believe I died with the rest. It was easier than facing what I'd become. He turned his head, meeting her gaze for the first time. You've seen what people think of me. To them, I'll always be phantom scum. For once, her sharp tone failed her. She studied him, the torn shirt, the coiled strength in his shoulders, the guilt etched into his face. Against her better judgment, against every instinct screaming caution, she found herself reaching out. Her blue fingers hovered over the tattoo, close enough to feel the heat of his skin, but not quite touching. You fought without killing tonight, she said softly. That's not what monsters do. Ryle's eyes softened, just barely. That's not what phantoms do either, not anymore. The moment stretched, fragile and charged. Then Taria leaned back, clearing her throat and forcing a crooked smile onto her lips. Well, if I'm going to throw in with a fugitive, at least he's competent. You owe me a shirt, by the way. And maybe a few drinks for nearly getting me killed. Despite himself, Ryle's lips curved into the faintest shadow of a smile. Drinks I can manage. Shirts are harder to come by out here. The proximity alarm chimed, breaking the spell. Taria leaned forward, adjusting their course. Outpost Vega ahead. An old friend owes me favors. We can lay low, resupply, maybe figure out what the hell we're going to do next. Ryle straightened, instincts bristling again. Old friends have a way of becoming enemies when the Draxer are involved. She shot him a sidelong glance, her grin returning, sharp and mischievous. Then it's a good thing I've never been good at keeping friends. Beyond the viewport, the swirling mists of the Vega Nebula came into view, green and violet clouds, painting the void. Nestled within, half hidden in rock and shadow, lay the outpost that promised safety or betrayal. Neither of them spoke the thought aloud, but both knew it. This was only the beginning. Outpost Vega loomed ahead like a jagged, tooth, a hunk of rock carved into something that only just passed for civilization. Docking beacons blinked weakly from its surface, half buried among asteroid rubble and the neon haze of the Vega Nebula. The night whisper descended with a low hum. Slipping into the yawning mouth of Bay 3, Taria cut the engines with practiced precision. "Home sweet home," she said, voice flippant, though Ryle noticed the tension in her shoulders. Ryle said nothing. He unbuckled, the torn shirt still clinging to him like a relic of the tavern. His eyes scanned the docking bay before they'd even disembarked. Too clean, too quiet. A smuggler's haven should have been buzzing with activity cargo drones, hangar crews, shouting merchants. Instead, silence pressed down on them, broken only by the faint hiss of atmospheric processors. "Your friend runs this place?" he asked. TAR. I forced a grin. "Krell. Known him for years. Scaly bastard owes me at least 3 favors." She stood, holstered her blaster, and strode toward the hatch with her usual bravado. But her pace was just a fraction too quick, her laugh just a fraction too sharp. The ramp lowered. A trio of figures waited at the base. Armed guards in armor, stamped with the unmistakable crimson insignia of the Draxer military. Between them stood a reptilian alien with scaled hide the color of rust. "Krell, Taria Ven," Krell said, his voice a gravelly rumble. "Been a long time." Her grin wavered. "Krell, didn't expect to see you dressed like an officer." "Undercover assignment," Krell said, unbothered. His amber eyes flicked to Ryle, lingering on the tattoo half hidden beneath torn fabric. "And you've brought interesting company." "Not your business," Taria snapped. But it was too late. More guards emerged from the shadows, surrounding them with quiet efficiency. And from behind them, a deeper voice rolled through the bay like thunder. "Taria." Her bravado cracked. She turned slowly, and a grin vanished from her face. Commander Ven stepped into the light. His bearing was unmistakable. Tall, broad-shouldered. His blue skin darker than his daughter's. His silver hair cut in severe military style. His uniform gleamed with the insignia of high command, medals arranged in rigid symmetry. He carried himself with the authority of someone used to commanding entire fleets. Her father. "I should have known," Taria muttered, her voice raw. "Of course this outpost was yours." "You look well," Commander Ven said evenly. His gaze slid past her to Ryle, studying him with clinical detachment. "And you found unexpected company." Ryle met that gaze without flinching. Neither bowed nor saluted. Just a soldier's stare, flat and unyielding. "You've led us a long chase, Phantom Morgan," Ven said. 3 years. That's a long time for one man to hide. "I wasn't hiding," Ryle said coldly. "I was done." Ven circled them like a predator. The only phantom to ever walk away. The only one with a conscience that makes you unique, dangerous, useful. Taria's fists clenched. "Don't pretend this is about noble causes. What do you want with him? What do you want with me?" Ven's eyes softened barely. "What I've always wanted, to protect my family and my people." He tapped a control on his wrist, and a holographic display flickered to life between them. It showed a colony in ruined streets littered with bodies. Buildings scorched black. New horizon. Human settlement. Official reports blame Pleiadian separatists. My sources confirm otherwise. This was a phantom operation, ordered by General Mord himself. Ryle's jaw tightened, his worst fear given form. "Mord is escalating," Ven continued. "Targeting human colonies, staging false attacks, pushing for war. If he succeeds, millions will die. I intend to stop him." His gaze sharpened. "And I need both of you to do it." Taria barked. A bitter laugh. You disowned me for walking away from your precious military, and now you want my help? You were reckless, Ven snapped, and for a heartbeat, the mask of command cracked, revealing raw emotion. Defying the Empire openly would have painted a target on your back. I pushed you away to keep you alive. His voice dropped. You'll never believe that, but it's the truth. The silence that followed was suffocating. Ryle broke it. You want us to testify. To be your weapons against Mord. Not weapons, Ven said. Allies. Morgan, you know the Phantoms, their tactics, their command structure. And you, Taria, know the underworld, the smuggler paths, the hidden routes. Together you can do what the High Command cannot, Taria's lip curled. And if we refuse? Ven didn't blink. Then the war comes, and the galaxy burns. Krell shifted uncomfortably beside them, but said nothing. Ryle's eyes flicked to Taria. Something unspoken passed between them, born of fire whiskey, torn fabric, and the chaos of survival. She didn't trust her father. He didn't trust the Empire. But the destruction of New Horizon burned in both their minds. Ryle's voice was measured when he answered. We'll need to see the evidence for ourselves. Ven nodded, expression unreadable. Of course. Krell will show you to quarters. Rest. Deliberate. We'll speak again soon. As they were escorted through the outpost corridors, Taria kept her gaze fixed ahead, her jaw tight. Her father's. Words echoed in her ears, heavy and poisonous. Protect you. Family. Allies. She whispered just loud enough for Ryle to hear. He's playing us. Ryle didn't disagree. Then we play back. Neither of them noticed Krell's glance, nor the flicker of guilt in his reptilian eyes. The Night Whisper hung in the shadow of Nexus 4's barren moon. Her hull lights dimmed, her engines purring at minimal thrust. Beyond the viewport stretched the crater that hid a phantom base, its entrance disguised as jagged rock, its heat signatures faint enough to fool casual scans. Only someone who had walked these halls before would recognize the patterns. Ryle Morgan adjusted the seals on his infiltration suit, the black fabric hugging his frame with the familiarity of an old scar. The helmet's comlink crackled softly. As he spoke, systems check. Reading you clear. Taria's voice came through, hushed but steady. She sat at the pilot's chair above, fingers poised over controls, eyes fixed on sensor readouts. Your vitals are solid. Heart rate a little high, but that's probably because you're about to walk straight into your old house of horrors. Beside her, Krell leaned in, his scaled fingers tapping commands into the auxiliary console. Telemetry link stable. We'll have your feet up here. If anything goes wrong, we'll pull you out. Ryle gave a humorless smile no one could. See, if anything goes wrong, there won't be time to pull me out. The airlock cycled open with a hiss, and low gravity embraced him as he stepped onto the moon's surface. His jump pack carried him gracefully across the crater's lip and down toward the hidden entryway. The rock face loomed unnatural in its symmetry. He keyed in access codes provided by Commander Ven. The panel chirped green, the disguised door yawning open with mechanical sighs. I'm inside, Ryle whispered. The corridor swallowed him, sterile and dark. White strip lights hummed overhead. His boots echoed faintly on the alloy floor. The air was crisp, filtered, with the faint tang of ozone and disinfectant. Memories clawed at him drills. Orders barked, nights of silence broken only by the hum of machinery. He pushed them aside and kept moving. No guards, no chatter, no soldiers sparring in the training pits. Only the mechanical whir of automated systems. Too quiet, Taria muttered into the com. Even for a phantom base. They're deployed, Krell suggested. Training exercises. Mission op. Ryle shook his head, scanning the empty barracks as he passed. No, A base this size never runs cold. His instincts prickled, every sense on edge. Still, he pressed on toward the command center. The doors slid open without resistance. Console lights flickered across rows of stations, unstaffed but alive. He moved quickly, plugging the decryption spike into the main terminal. The device blinked to life, scrolling strings of alien code as it began siphoning data. "Downloading files now," Ryle reported. His voice was steady, but his hand tightened on the blaster at his hip. "Mission logs?" "Last entry was 3 days ago. Then nothing. 3 days," Taria said sharply. "That's when my father found us. When Krell called us to the outpost, the implication hit like a blow. Not coincidence. Not chance. A trap. Keep pulling everything." Krell urged. "We need proof orders, transmission logs, anything linking Mord to the attacks." The spike's indicator pulsed green, data streaming. Ryle's eyes flicked across the screens, catching fragments. Human colony coordinates, false flag directives, casualty projections. His gut clenched. "Got it," he said. "Evidence enough to bury a general." And then the lights shifted, white to crimson. Sirens howled, bouncing off metal walls. The comm cut into static. Taria's voice stuttered through, broken and faint. "Ill. Get out trap." Then nothing. The terminal locked, screens freezing as if clenched in an unseen fist. Ryle yanked the spike free, just as the command center doors slid open. 4 armored phantoms entered in formation, visors reflecting red emergency light. Their movements were perfect, synchronized, lethal. And between them stepped Commander Venn. Ryle's pulse spiked, but his stance didn't falter. "You set." "US up." Venn's expression was calm, even regretful. "Politics makes strange allies. Mord sees humans as a threat. I see them as a variable, dangerous, unstable, but predictable enough when properly handled." His eyes flicked to the spike in Ryle's hand. "And you've just stolen something that belongs to us." "This was never about stopping Mord," Ryle said, voice flat with fury. "You're working with him." Then spread his hands, as if confessing a minor sin. "His methods are crude. Mine are refined. Taria was the bait. You were the prize." Something twisted in Ryle's chest: anger, betrayal, pity for the daughter who had believed, however briefly, that her father might be different. "If I refuse?" Ryle asked, though the answer was already clear. Venn's smile was razor thin. "Then the Night Whisper suffers a tragic accident. My daughter included." The phantoms raised their weapons, the hum of charged rifles filling the room. Ryle's grip tightened on his blaster, calculation flickering through his mind. 4 against 1. No cover, no squad. Just him. And then the base shuddered with a thunderous explosion. The viewport rattled, emergency shields snapping up as debris showered the crater outside. A second blast cascaded through the power conduits, plunging the command center into half-darkness. Venn's head snapped toward the viewport, eyes narrowing. "What?" Ryle didn't wait. He dropped into motion, firing 3 shots in rapid succession. 2 phantoms crumpled before the others could adjust. He dove through a side door as alarms shrieked louder, smoke and sparks raining from the ceiling. Taria's voice crackled back into life, urgent and fierce. "Ryle, we're hitting the generators. Get to the south airlock." "Now," he sprinted. Through collapsing corridors, the spike clutched in his fist, every nerve alive with survival. Behind him, Venn's voice echoed through the comm systems, amplified and cold. "You can run, Phantom, but you're still mine." The outpost groaned as another explosion tore through its foundations, sending tremors up Ryle's legs. He didn't look back. He couldn't. Not now. The only way forward was through fire and betrayal, and into the arms of the one person who had chosen him, not because of what he was, but despite it. Harmony Station floated like a jewel at the border between human and Draxer space, its transparent central dome glittering with gardens built for two species, two atmospheres, two visions of fragile peace. Ships of every size drifted into its docking arms freighters laden with goods, diplomatic shuttles gleaming in polished alloy, even patrol craft painted in the insignia of both alliances. It was a symbol, a promise, and it was about to become a target. The Night Whisper glided into approach lanes under Krell's borrowed credentials. Ryle Morgan stood behind the cockpit chairs, one hand braced on the frame, green eyes locked on the station through the viewport. He could almost feel the weight of the data spike tucked into his belt, its damning contents burning against his hip. Orders, transmission logs, casualty projections, proof that General Mord and Commander Venn were orchestrating false flag attacks to spark war. They'll hit the Draxer diplomatic quarter, Ryle said, voice grim. Disguised as human extremists, the perfect spark. Krell nodded, his scaled fingers flicking over access codes. Station security trusts my ident. We'll get in close. Once inside, we find the Phantom Squad and stop them before they plant the charges. Taria leaned back in the pilot's chair, her silver hair catching the light of the nebula beyond. Her jaw was set, her tone hard. And my father? Ryle met her gaze. His command ship will be near, watching, directing, if he's here. He's the key to shutting this down for good. Her laugh was sharp and bitter. Good. Time we had a family reunion. Docking clamps bit into the Night Whisper's hull with a metallic clunk. The trio disembarked into bustling corridors, alive with diplomats, traders, and families. Children ran beneath banners that fluttered with both empires' crests. To Ryle, every smile felt like a blade pressed to his throat. Every passerby was an innocent who would die if he failed. They split at the security checkpoint. Taria peeled away, her path already charted slip back to her ship, trace Venn's command vessel through its cloak, and board it if she could. Don't get yourself killed before I get back, she told Ryle, a smirk that didn't reach her. Eyes, you either, he answered. Their eyes lingered a heartbeat, longer than necessary before parting. Ryle and Krell moved deeper into the service corridors. The polished gleam of the public halls gave way to steel walls and humming conduits. Here, maintenance crews labored unseen, except one team stood out. 5 figures in fresh coveralls. Their strides too precise, their eyes too sharp. There, Ryle whispered. They followed, silent as hunters. At a junction near the Draxer offices, the disguised phantoms unpacked their repair equipment. Inside gleamed explosives primed for detonation. Ryle lifted a stolen cum unit to his lips, his voice shifting into the clipped tones of a Phantom Commander. Team 2, report status. The infiltrators froze. Then one responded, all proceeding as planned. Charges set. Negative, Ryle barked, the order sharp enough to crack stone. Abort mission. Security breach detected. Training warred with instinct. The hesitation that followed was all Ryle and Krell needed. They struck as one, Ryle's hands a blur, disarming weapons, disabling limbs, moving with precision. That left no room for killing. Krell's blade flashed, binding and knocking down. When the fight ended, 5 phantoms lay bound and disarmed, their explosives diffused. Sweat ran down Ryle's brow, his breath steady but hard. Almost 2. Easy, Krell muttered, binding a wound on his arm. It's not over, Ryle said. He felt it in his bones. His instincts screamed. As if answering, his cum crackled alive, Taria's voice breaking through amid blaster fire and static. Ryle, do you copy? I found my father's ship. And he doesn't appreciate surprise visits from strange daughters. Could use some backup if you're not too busy. The line cut with a violent explosion in the background. Ryle was already moving, shoving his way toward the docking bays. Krell caught his arm. Go. I'll hold here. Stop him. Minutes later, Ryle's shuttle knifed into the void, engines screaming as Harmony Station dwindled behind him. Ahead, a sleek Draxer cruiser shimmered into half-visibility, its cloak disrupted by weapons fire. The Night Whisper danced between its guns, scarred but defiant, piloted with reckless brilliance. Ryle's pulse hammered. He dove through the cruiser's blind spot, firing a precision shot that blew out one emplacement. The Night Whisper plunged through the gap, sliding into the auxiliary hangar. Ryle followed, landing hard as his hatch burst open. Smoke, alarms, and silver hair. Taria stood across the bay, blaster in hand, her expression fierce. Took you long enough. Traffic was terrible, Ryle said, falling into step beside her. They moved together through steel corridors that shook with impacts, cutting. Down what little resistance met them. Too little. Too easy. He's expecting us, Ryle muttered. Good, Taria growled. I'd hate to disappoint him. The bridge doors slid open, revealing Commander Venn, framed by the viewport, stars glittering behind him. He turned, calm and composed, as if welcoming guests rather than adversaries. Taria, Phantom Morgan, right on schedule. Her blaster, trained on his chest. Ryle's hand hovered near his weapon. The air between them crackled with unfinished history and sharpened betrayal. Venn's voice was quiet, confident. You've done well. Better than I hoped. But you've only proven what I already knew. His eyes locked on Ryle. Humans adapt. They survive. They bond across species. All qualities that make you dangerous or invaluable. Ryle's tone was ice. Your plot failed. Harmony Station is safe. We have the evidence. It's over. For the first time, a flicker of doubt cracked Venn's mask. He reached for a concealed weapon, but Taria was faster. Her shot burned across the room, striking his shoulder with surgical precision. He staggered, his eyes flashing pain and something close to sorrow. That's for using me as bait, she said, her voice steady. And for underestimating humans. Smoke curled from her blaster as the bridge alarm screamed. Outside, fleets scrambled, drawn by the firestorm of betrayal and revelation. And in that moment, standing shoulder to shoulder in the heart of the enemy, Taria and Ryle realized the war wasn't just political anymore. It was personal. 1 month later, the galaxy still trembled from the revelations torn open on Harmony. Station. Newsfeeds replayed the tribunal, day and night. General Mord shackled in chains of burnished alloy. Commander Venn flanked by guards, their crimes projected into every home and port. Images of colonies burned, transmissions forged, orders signed, all laid bare. The false flag conspiracy that might have drowned millions in war was undone by the testimony of one human deserter, one Novalian smuggler, and a reptilian officer who had chosen truth over orders. The Cosmic Spill Tavern, however, carried on as though nothing in the universe could change it. Smoke curled to the rafters. Glasses clinked. Mercenaries bickered over contracts. Life returned to its old rhythm, as it always did in the spill. Drv wiped the bar with his ever-present rag, all 4 arms working in casual sync. He glanced toward the doors out of habit. When they opened, his jaw split in a rare grin. Well, I'll be damned, he rumbled. The patrons looked up as 2 figures stepped through. A human man with sharp green eyes and a presence that seemed both relaxed and coiled at once. Beside him, a Novalian woman with skin glowing faintly under the dim lights, silver hair cropped close, her grin as reckless as ever. Didn't think I'd see you two again, Drav said, setting down the rag. Ryle Morgan smiled an expression. so unfamiliar on his face that even he seemed surprised by it. Thought we'd come full circle, back where it started. And I still owe him a shirt, Tarja added, looping her arm around his waist with a wicked smirk. The tavern buzzed with recognition. Whispers rippled. Phantom deserter, Harmony Station, Tribunal. Some eyes held fear, others awe, but no one moved against them. The galaxy had seen the truth. This phantom wasn't a butcher. He was a man who had stood against his own kind. Drava slid 2 glasses across the counter without asking. Relian fire whiskey for her. Terran bourbon for him. To new beginnings, Ryle said, raising his glass. And to ripped shirts, Tarja countered, clinking hers against his. Best mistake I ever made. They drank. Their free hands found each other beneath the counter, fingers entwining in quiet defiance of the gulf that once separated their species. Yet outside the tavern, the galaxy was far from at peace. The tribunal dragged on, but factions still stirred. In the shadows, rumors spoke of phantom splinter cells, loyal to Mord even in disgrace. Whispers hinted that Ven had held back secrets in his testimony. And in a sealed archive beneath the tribunal chambers, a file remained classified. Within it was the full truth of Proxima 4, the day that had driven Ryle into exile. The massacre had not been an accident, nor an overreach. It had been a test of loyalty engineered by Mord and sanctioned by Ven. Every phantom had obeyed. Every one but Ryle. He was not merely a deserter. He was the only phantom who had disobeyed orders. The only one who had chosen conscience over command. And that made him more than a ghost of the past. It made him the most dangerous witness alive. Ryle didn't know if that truth would ever see light. For now, he let himself breathe in the air. Smoke and noise at the tavern. The warmth of Tarja's hand in his. For now, the war was on hold. The galaxy watching. Waiting. What began with a torn shirt in a drunken scuffle had kindled a fire neither of them had expected. A partnership forged in chaos. A bond tested in war, a love born in defiance. And somewhere in the swirling haze of the spill, as glasses clinked and laughter rose, the human phantom and the Novalian smuggler held each other's gaze, silently daring the galaxy to try and tear them apart again.